morning everyone and happy Monday. So the first thing I really need to do is let you guys know that I did finish Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy last night while I was waiting for my vlog to upload, and I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The ending, again, I knew it was coming because that was like the one thing I remembered from reading this the first time. It was very emotional, tore my heart out of my chest. I teared up again because I said previously I had teared up like 2 other times with that book. It is very much a more emotional, heart-wrenching series than the Bane Chronicles. I think part of it is because it's Magnus Bane versus Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. Magnus Bane is always, you know, more fun, flamboyant, that kind of stuff, and it's a lot of previous, you know, tales. Whereas this one, we do have some like things that happened in the past, but it's overall set after the 6th book of the Mortal Instruments, after all that stuff happened, and they're sort of needing to rebuild the Shadowhunters. They're needing to train new recruits, train the younger Shadowhunters, this kind of thing. And so it is set basically after a war and after tragedy, and so it does have those elements in it. After I did that, because I actually still had some time last night, I did actually end up picking up The Lost Book of the White. This is the 2nd book in the Eldest Curses series, and I'm reading these out of order, reading them in chronological order. So this one happens after Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, so you actually do have to read that short story collection to read this, unless you want a bunch of spoilers, because it's already happened. I'm on page like 63, I believe it is. So far I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving Magnus and Alec. Again, I do have the, you know, cover that matches the 1st book because it came on the back of the dust jacket, so I'm very happy about that. I think more publishers should do that. This was the original, and then I had flipped it. I still love the original, but I have that cover that matches in paperback for Red Scrolls of Magic, so I will probably end up waiting for the paperback of Lost Book of the White to come out to get that. Now, this book is much thinner. Should I show you? Because, yeah, I could not believe my eyes. Look at that. But it's because the words are so much smaller. They're like half the size of Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. It was the same thing with Red Scrolls of Magic. I do believe these books were originally, I think, supposed to be adult versus YA. And I feel like all of the YA ones have the bigger text and these ones don't. That being said, I've loved the first 63 pages that I read. So I'm very excited for this. It's over 300 but under 400 I believe for this book, but it's going to feel probably closer to like 400, 500-ish while I'm reading it. So I'm going to be reading this one slower than the other ones, but I'm still planning on hopefully finishing it today. I think that has to be my goal if my goal is 341 pages in general. I'm very excited for it. This, like I said, does take place after Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. I can't give too many details even on what this is because of Red Scrolls of Magic and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy and the Mortal Instruments. But this one takes place 3 years after the Mortal Instruments. Mortal Instruments basically takes place all in 2007. So in the last book, like City of Heavenly Fire, Alec is 18. In this one, he's 3 years older, so he is 21. Everybody's 3 years older. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy actually takes place over 2 years, and they sort of break it up. You can tell, like, when they talk about, like, the seasons or going to summer, back to school, that kind of stuff. So, we do have some progression in time, because the Mortal Instruments all takes place over, like, 6 months in 2007. So, yes, very excited about this. I don't have much else to say about it yet, but I'm loving the writing style. I'm just very, very excited. So I just went and got the mail because I have an owl crate that just came in and I'm going to have to open that soon. But I also technically got like bookish mail. However, I didn't open it on camera because there was no like return address or anything on the envelope, so I had no idea what it was. But it's a bookmark. I haven't taken it out of the plastic yet, so let me do that really quick and then I'll show you guys. Okay, so it was by Xanthi. I think I either found them on Instagram or Twitter. So this is like their little card. This is the bookmark. It is nice and laminated, and it's just like a cute girl with glasses and ghosts, and I just thought it was perfect for like October spooky season. It's coming up, and this I think was like $3.50 plus a little bit for shipping, so not too bad. And then it also came with a couple little stickers. They're the exact same sticker, but again, it looks like, can we focus? There we go. It looks like sort of like the logo that's on the business card, but it also is colored and sort of holographic on the edges, and very, very cute. But yeah, I totally opened this up not knowing what it was, and it ended up being a bookish item, so yeah, I'm very, very happy with this. Good morning, happy Tuesday. So I will be going to Barnes & Noble to pick up a couple books that I, had on order that are coming out. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about The Lost Book of the White. I did not finish this last night. I'm currently on page 268. I think I read like 188 pages of this yesterday. The thing is, the text is so much smaller in this that it feels like it's taking longer than the book. And I'm not saying it feels like it's taking longer to read, because I'm actually really, really enjoying this one. This might be one of my favorite ones. And so I'm getting into the story, but if I do sort of consider how long I was reading and then look at the page number, I'm not reading it as fast as all the rest in the series. And I do feel like it's because these Eldest Curses books were supposed to be adult. I don't know if they are technically that way sometimes, because they are sold in the young adult section with everything else, but these are the only two books where the font size is so much smaller. That being said, like I said, I'm really, really enjoying it. And so it got to around like 11:30 last night, and I just knew I was not going to force myself to read this book. And so I ended up going to bed at like 11:30, knowing that I did not reach my page count. I could have possibly done that, but I feel like it would have been a detriment for me because I really was enjoying it, and I sort of want to savor this book because this is the first book in this entire Shadowhunter September that I have not read yet. There's other ones that I haven't read either, but this is the first one, and like I said, I'm really, really enjoying it. We have most of this set in Shanghai, and we have the whole gang, all that kind of stuff, so I'm really loving the fact that we do have one major plot point. We have characters that we know and love. One other thing that's really, really cool, because it is set in Shanghai, there are actual like Chinese mythology stuff here. So we have Yan Luo, who is like the ruler of Diyu, and they talk about all this kind of stuff. We have certain demons that they have to fight in here that are again based in some Chinese mythology and religions that you don't see in the rest of the Shadowhunter world. So I really did enjoy that we have like that sort of stuff in here. It does seem like they've done a lot of good research, which means I feel like Wesley Chu might have done a lot of this book. The writing style and the world building do feel slightly different than the books that Cassandra Clare does by herself. However, the characters, the snarky like dialogue still feels very, very similar. Like nobody feels out of character. So however they ended up writing this book, it was done really, really well. But that being said, I still have, I think, 130-ish pages to read today of this one. So that is my main goal for today. And then once I finish that, I will let you know my final thoughts. We will pick up the next book in the series. But like I said, I have to go to Barnes & Noble as well to go pick up a book or two. And they will be opening in about an hour, so I will be leaving soonish. Okay, I'm back home. I actually was in and out of Barnes & Noble within 10 minutes. You should be very, very proud of me because I also used to work at that Barnes & Noble, and everybody that was working today are friends. So we did talk a little bit, but my book that I went to go get was at the counter because it was a pre-order, and that is going to be Well Played by Jen DeLuca. This is the book birthday today for this book. I read Well Met earlier this year, absolutely loved it, and this is going to be following other characters in the same Ren Fair setting. It's probably set like a year or two, who knows, after the first one. I'm very excited. This is a companion novel. It's not following the same characters, obviously, but I really love the writing style and everything from the first one, so I'm very, very excited. Then I also picked up Venus in the Blind Spot. This is a new Junji Ito, came out, I think, end of last month, possibly. I don't fully remember. I think this is a new short story collection from him. I don't fully know if it's short stories or not, but I'm loving this cover. I'm planning on actually reading this for the Fortnite Frights at the end of next month. That is a readathon hosted by Seiji from the Artisan Geek. I will leave all that information linked down below. I will have a TBR video for that up closer to the readathon, but I'm very excited. And like I said, I do feel like this is going to be one of those ones. This is one of the rare Junji Ito that actually has a dust jacket. They don't always do this, so I'm just going to show you the cover, and boom. Yeah, so Junji Ito, horror manga, absolutely ready for that. And then I also picked up a book for Presley. We have Llama, Red Pajama. This is a sort of like classic children's book. I had never read it before, but I wanted to pick him up a book, and I actually read through it at the bookstore. It's really cute. It rhymes, which is one of my favorite things for children's board books and picture books. We've already read it. He likes to flip the pages, and every single page he was like touching Baby Llama and Mama Llama's face, so I think he likes it. So that's my update for now, because obviously I need to read, and I only bought 3 books. I'm very proud of myself. You should also be proud of me too, because that is hard to do sometimes. Someone just woke up from his nap, and I just finished reading The Lost Book of the White. It's right behind me because I just finished it and he woke up. Also though, I'm pretty sure I said earlier today that like last night I read like 188 pages. I have no idea where that number came from, because looking at my stuff, I actually read 205. So better than I thought I did, even though I'm the one that read it. I love it. 5 out of 5 stars. It was so well done. I love the fact that they had like the Chinese mythology religion stuff in there, not just like the normal Shadowhunter stuff. The characters were great. The action was great. I just really loved it. I can't like give details because spoilers and things like that. You definitely need to read it after Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. But it doesn't seem like it gives away any spoilers from like other series really, except for maybe like Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices. Things that I feel like those are the biggest series that other books in the Shadowhunter world give spoilers for. It did definitely end in a way that the overarching, you know, plot line had a conclusion, but they left it open for that 3rd book, because there is supposed to be a 3rd book in this series that I think takes place after the Dark Artifices. I don't fully remember because it's not coming out yet. But really good. I love cliffhangers like that where it's not like a full-on cliffhanger. We don't get any sort of resolution, but there's more to the story, and there's definitely going to be more to the story. I'm very, very excited. So that's where we are right now. The next book that I should be reading is actually going to be Lady Midnight, which is a book I have read before. So I do remember some stuff from that, and that'll be the next one we pick up. Hopefully it'll be going by a little bit quicker, because again, the font size on that book is bigger than the Red Scrolls of Magic, Lost Book of the White, those ones. So hopefully I can get through that pretty quickly, because even though I did finish this one today, I've only read like 100 and something pages. Maybe that's where my 188 is from. I don't actually remember anymore, but I read like 100 and something. I don't know the full number, but that means I do need to read at least a couple more 100 pages today, so hopefully Lady Midnight will be easy to get through. I think that's it from me. Hi. Oh, the dog's itchy. Pippin, you scratching? Yeah. Good morning and happy Wednesday. It's about 9:30, so I've just had breakfast. Presley's with Nine Eye. I think she's trying to put him down for a nap. Even though he woke up at like 6-ish, they still like to put him down for like 2 naps a day. We'll see. I am in the middle of Lady Midnight. However, I did not get as much reading done yesterday as I really wanted to. I had a headache for most of the like evening hours yesterday, and so even though I finished The Lost Book of the White and started Lady Midnight, I didn't get too much reading done. I did get a little bit more reading done before I went to bed, but I did try to go to bed a little earlier than normal. So I'm currently on chapter 7, page 162 in here, which means I only read, I think, 294 pages yesterday. It's not horrible. It's not even the least amount I've done this month, but it's not where I wanted to be. This one I have read before, although it has been a while and I've only read it once, so there's probably some like small details I haven't remembered. I do know some of the like climax and reveals and that kind of stuff, which I'm okay with that because now I get to sort of reread it to see about if we can tell for the reveals, because one thing that Cassandra Clare is really good about doing, and I think I mentioned this in like the first or second week vlog, is that she likes to throw suspicion onto other people, so you are really not able to tell most of the time who the like bad guy or assistant bad guys, those kind of things are. It's really hard to tell, and so I do know who it is in here, but I don't know if I'll actually be able to like tell based on the writing and everything, because like she is just so good at like throwing that suspicion. This one does deal with fairies. I know in previous series we've had like rogue shadow hunters, clockwork creatures, demons as like big overarching bad guy, you know, themes, and you know who is sort of the bad people in this. And this one is dealing with fairies because this one takes place 5 years after the end of the Mortal Instruments, so like 2 more years after the end of The Lost Book of the White, and I'm very, very excited to get into this. I love the characters in here. Again, I'm only like 160 pages in, however we got introduced to a lot of these characters in City of Heavenly Fire, because the main 2 characters, Emma and Jules, they were both, I think, 12 in City of Heavenly Fire. This is 5 years later. They're both about 17, and they're like our main characters, sort of like how Jace and Clary were. There's other characters that are also very important, and probably when we get further in the series are less secondary characters, more main characters, but like Emma and Jules are our main characters. So I'm going to be trying to get a good old chunk of this done today, because we all know I'm behind. We all know I'm behind. This is just how it is. I don't even think I've like tried to check page number wise. Let me see. Okay, so I'm supposed to read like 341-ish pages a day. Today is the 23rd. So I should be at like 7,843. I know I'm not, because I'm not. The thing is though, okay, so I'm supposed to be at 7,843. As of yesterday, when I finished The Lost Book of the White, I have officially read more pages this month than like ever. This is the most pages I've read this year so far, and I'm still going. Like, we still have at least a week in this month. So we're gonna take off the like 6,640-ish, I think it was, that I did end up reading, and then I took like an extra 163. I'm about 1,000 pages behind. I mean, I don't think that's the exact page number, and that's not including the like 343 pages I'm supposed to read today. I'm behind. As of right now, if I keep this pace going, I'm not gonna finish Chain of Gold this month. I am really, really hoping to, because like that's actually the one I'm the most excited for, I feel like, right now, because of the short story collections that I read last week, because we had short stories with characters from Chain of Gold, and it just, the little bits of information that I got, I want to read. But I do need to finish this book, and Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness, and Ghost of the Shadow Market before I get to Chain of Gold. And those 3 I haven't read yet. So I'm definitely in a part of this month with books I haven't read, because Lost Book of the White, which I just finished, I did not read before. Loved it. That's one of my favorites, actually. I have read this one, but I haven't read any other ones that I'm supposed to read this month. So, yeah. I should probably stop talking to you so I can read. However, I do think I want to try to film a video today for my October TBR, because I have not done that yet. I also need to edit my Owl Crate unboxing that is going up tomorrow. I will leave that linked down below because that'll be done by the time you guys see this. Okay, I'll stop talking so I can read. Okay, so I just finished editing the video that is going up tomorrow, which I mentioned earlier, the Owl Crate unboxing, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. But I finished all my editing stuff. I'm currently just about 200 pages into Lady Midnight, and I have also decided to do some calculations. So, as we have seen from me talking to this camera for the last 3 weeks, I am behind in my page numbers. When I originally calculated everything out at the beginning of this month, I'm supposed to read like a total of 10,000 something pages, and in order to do that I was supposed to read about 341 pages a day. That doesn't always happen. So because I'm behind, I decided to recalculate. Today is the 23rd, and I added up all the rest of the books that I have to read and divided by the 8 days that I have left. So in order to actually finish every single book that I had set out to read this month, I now need to read 430 pages every single day. So it's less than 100 pages more, but it's still a lot more than I really was hoping for. We'll see how that goes. I've only read like 30-ish pages today so far because of the fact that I had to edit. I also filmed another video. I'm getting ahead on that kind of stuff, but that means I need to go read now. I just thought I would give you the update since I did decide to calculate this out, and 430 appears to be our new number. Yeah, you got a controller. Oh, gonna eat it. We gave him an old, okay, I say old, it's a PS3 controller. It is actually our current PS3 controller, but we exclusively use the PS4 downstairs. We haven't used the PS3 in a while. So we gave him the PS3 controller yesterday, and he is all about it. We are now awake. It is 6:30. We actually woke up around 5:45 because somebody peed the bed. Peed through his diaper. He just peed a lot last night. Peed the bed. So we had to change him, change the sheets. We all got up, and basically as soon as we came down here, he got his controller. At least it keeps him away from my controller. So I did read Lady Midnight last night, and I'm currently on page 492, chapter 21. I did not quite make my 430 or even my 341 goal. I ended up reading 330 pages last night. It's not horrible, and I'm trying to let go with my page number goals just because of the fact that it is impossible to read as many pages as I should be reading this month to hit this goal. I fell behind very, very early, and I sort of just want to enjoy the books. I do want to try and finish them if at all possible, but there is no way that I'm just going to be sitting here all day, every day, reading and not looking after and playing with this kid. There are obviously times when I can put his TV on, his songs, that kind of thing, and I will read, but it's not as much as you would really think it is. We have to do a lot of feeding him, and he only naps for a couple, maybe 3 hours total a day, and so I do a lot of my reading at night. But again, by the time I got to like 11:30, I got tired and went to bed, so I didn't finish my page count. I could have probably hit the 341, but I like to finish chapters, and even though Cassandra Clare's writing style is very easy to read and everything like that, her chapters are long. Longer than I would prefer, so it's not like one of those quick, like, ooh, one more chapter, and then it's like a couple pages and you're like, ooh, one more chapter. It's 20-something, sometimes 30 pages of a chapter, and it just sometimes feels too much to continue when I'm already tired. So that's that. Let's actually talk about the book a little bit. I'm really enjoying this one. This one I have read before, and one of the things that I really love in this is that we have Ty, who is one of Jules's brothers, and he's autistic. He's on the autism spectrum. I don't know how well done it is, except for I don't think I've ever heard anybody complain about this. They never exactly use the word autistic in this book, and I'm assuming from the other ones, because of the fact that this is set in the Shadowhunter world, and there are things from the mundane world that just don't transfer over, terminology, that kind of stuff. And they do go into a lot of the clave being old-fashioned, and I know that they talked about this a little bit when they talk about the different, you know, like relationships you can have or not have with, you know, as a Shadowhunter with different downworlders. Alec and Magnus had some, you know, issues, not huge issues, but issues because of the fact that they were two men. I know Helen and Aline had some issues because, again, they're two women. So they talk a lot about how the clave is old-fashioned, the law is hard, but it's the law. And one thing that I do love is that our characters, both from the Mortal Instruments and from like in here, talk a lot about how they wish things could change, and because they're basically like the next generation of major Shadowhunters, they're hoping to change it themselves. And so that's one thing I really like. I do, like I said, like the way that Tiberius is portrayed in here. They talk a lot about how he just sees the world differently. He does have some stuff where like different sounds and distractions overwhelm him. He only likes to be touched by people he knows, but also on his terms, so it's not even all the time. He is very sometimes focused on one sort of subject at a time, but besides that, he wants to be treated just like a normal person, and I absolutely love that kind of stuff. So yes, this is very good. I love the also fairy element that we have in here, because even though we had some fairies in previous books, it hasn't been as much as this one, and even still in this one it's not a huge element yet, but I do believe it's going to be more in some of the other ones. And so yes, today's goal is to at least finish this book, because like I said, I'm almost on page 500, and I think it goes up to like 700 or something, so that's my goal, and I will talk to you guys later. Hi, dude. So he just woke up from his morning nap. It's a little after 11. Leon and I really want to try and get him to one nap a day. Nai and Yaya like to put him to sleep, so that's not happening yet. So morning naps are sometimes a little bit later, but I did end up finishing Lady Midnight. I don't exactly know how many pages I've read so far today, but I do know I ended yesterday at like 490 something, and the book has 690 something, so I want to say probably around 200-ish pages, and I'm giving the book 5 stars. I have read this one before. It's the last one that I have read before, but I absolutely loved it. Those last like 200-ish pages that I read today went by super quickly, but it also felt like the action was really, really amped up, and everything was just fast-paced moving, and I loved it. I'm very curious to sort of see what is going to happen in the next couple books, because we, you know, had our overarching plot. They figured out the things that were going on, but obviously there are some things that it left a little bit open, but not in a sense of like, I know what the next plot is going to be. But I do feel like I want to jump into Lord of Shadows like right away, basically, because I need to know sort of what we're getting into. But I really, really enjoyed it. I love the fact that we mostly follow Emma and Jules and their parabatai, obviously, but each series we basically follow like one major set of parabatai, or at least we have parabatai in there. So like in the Infernal Devices we have Will and Jem, in the Mortal Instruments we have Jace and Alec, and now we have Emma and Jules, and they're all different in their dynamic, but I love it. So yes, very, very excited to go into the next one. I, like I said before, have not read Lord of Shadows, and that is basically the book that made me fall behind in reading all these Shadowhunters books, and it's because I was semi-spoiled for the ending. I wasn't spoiled for the who, but I was informed that it is devastating because near the end of book 2, a pretty major character dies. And in other series, we've had deaths from like secondary tertiary characters, and I do feel like it's probably going to be more of a secondary character. I actually think I know who it is based on things. I don't know for sure, but because of that, I didn't want to wait a whole year. I think it might have even been more than a year before Queen of Air and Darkness came out, and so I just didn't want to have that devastation and the waiting. So I decided to wait, and I was going to read Lord of Shadows before I read Queen of Air and Darkness. But then by the time that happened, I wanted to reread Lady Midnight, and it just never happened. So that's the whole reason I'm behind, and I really, really want to read it now. So we're gonna probably have lunch first, and then I'll try and read later. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Yeah, the camera. Oh, you gonna touch it? Happy Friday! Good morning, it is Friday. I did not read much more yesterday after I talked to you guys. I am in the middle, well, I have started Lord of Shadows. I'm actually on page 37, in the middle of a chapter. I don't know why I'm in the middle of a chapter, but I didn't get much reading done after I finished Lady Midnight. I ended up doing some editing on a video that is going up tomorrow, so you guys will see that before you see this one, and I just didn't get much stuff done in the afternoon and the evening. I was in charge of dinner last night, so I did that. And then because we got up at like 5:30, 5:45 with Presley yesterday, I was just super tired by the time I went to bed, and I think I was in bed, like falling asleep by 9:30. So it just didn't happen. I'm trying to be a little bit nicer to myself with my expectations for Shadowhunter September. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish everything, but yeah, so I'm like 30 something, almost 40 pages into Lord of Shadows, and this is like a 700, almost 700 page book. So I mean, it's not her craziest book. That's Queen of Air and Darkness at like over 900 pages, but I'm going to try and get as much reading done of this as possible. I don't know. Like, literally, I'm that far into the book. It looks so much worse than just saying like 30 something pages. But yeah, and because of that, I have no idea what this is about. I have not looked up any synopses for these books, and because I'm only like, I think I've read like prologue. Was there a prologue for this one? There's almost always a prologue. Prologue, chapter 1, and then I think I'm in the middle of chapter 2. That's all I got. Okay, just a quick update because it is almost noon. We're going to be having lunch soon, but I have been reading Lord of Shadows. I'm currently on chapter 8, page 143, and I'm liking that we're seeming to get into more fairy type stuff because, again, I think I mentioned earlier this week that this series has a lot more fairy stuff to deal with, whereas like other series had other bad guys or like the creatures that they dealt with more. However, also, this story so far is feeling hard to read, and I don't mean the way it's written. It's written very easy to read, really easy to get into, just like everything else. But this book specifically, they have centurions who apparently, it was another thing that started up again after the war in the Mortal Instruments books, and they're like scholars and soldiers type of things, but in this book we have some that have come to like live at the Institute while they're doing investigating things, and some of them are very bigoted towards downworlders, fairies, Mark, who's half fairy, very racist basically. And this book came out in 2017, which I checked after I started reading some of this because a lot of it definitely seems to be a little bit of commentary on stuff that's like currently happening. I know we're in 2020 now, but a lot of it feels very recent with the way that somebody else exclaiming hate for a certain group allows other people to feel like they can also exclaim hate because it's common, or it's something that they feel other people also believe. And not all the Centaurians are like this, but in the first book, we were mostly just focused on the family, and we didn't have any other sort of outside influences really, but now we do have that extra element, and it's hitting close to home in the fact that, like, we've had to deal with this kind of stuff a lot in the last year, and it's just one of those things where I feel like it feels very, like, of the times. It's hard to explain. I'm sure there's a good reason in here, because, like, a lot of it after Mortal Instruments does deal with prejudice and hatred toward fairies, and so that's part of what they're dealing with in here. But I guess I wasn't fully expecting that whole element to be a big part, and so far in that, like, 100 pages that I've just read right now, it's a quite big part, because in the first, like, 40 pages I had read yesterday, they didn't have the Centaurians there yet. But now, like I said, it looks like we're going into more fairy type stuff, and I'm very curious to see where we're going to go. But I'm sure we're going to have some more very tough elements in this book as well. Okay, it's currently 6:30, we're about to have dinner, and I've only read a little bit more today because we ended up putting together a new TV stand. It used to be, like, down here, and you could not see any closed captioning on the TV, which I don't necessarily need, but I like, and Leon really likes it as well, especially because English is not his first language, and so it's just a better thing to have, especially if we're ever watching any shows with accents or anything like that. If I can turn on closed captioning, I will. But like I said, I'm a couple more chapters into Lord of Shadows. I will read it more tonight. But I know I had been saying earlier that this book is very similar to things that are currently happening now, but they just got to a part where they're sort of explaining a little bit more about, like, the bigotry and, like, what people want to do, and they want to, like, make a registry and have all downworlders register and wear a mark. And so obviously it's feeling very much like the Nazis and how they had all the Jewish people wear, I think it was like the Star of David. And so the fact that I originally thought that the things in here were based more or felt more like present time instead of stuff in the past, like history, my brain was, like, blown from that. History does repeat itself. I know everybody, besides certain people, can see it, and I hate it. But yeah, so obviously this is trying to make more parallels to that time period, and it's ending up having parallels to this time period. Good morning and happy Saturday. So I literally just woke up, so I hope we're awake. I swear we are. Lord of Shadows. I'm on page 392. So I got, you know, like 350-ish pages read. So I did my, you know, normal 340 something, but not the new 430 something. It again just got a little bit too late after we had, you know, done stuff. You might be able to tell we have a new bookcase back here as well. We had a delivery from IKEA yesterday. I don't know if I actually mentioned that part, but I helped put together the TV stand because we needed it high enough to see the closed captioning, and then we have a couple bookcases that my husband and Yaya put together. So we have one for me back here, one for him back there. I'm going to be using mine later because I don't want to have to deal with doing a whole filming reorganization thing, but I do want to reorganize my books out in the living room, and so I'm going to be using some of the bookcases. I have a couple here. They're not fully clean yet, so ignore any mess, but I want to use the bookcases back here, I think, for my, like, TBR books, so I don't have them taking as much room up in the living room. We'll see. But off topic, I am 392 pages in. I'm really liking this. I'm really liking the fairy aspect. There is a lot going on in here, but it's super interesting. It took me a second to remember what I actually wanted to talk about. but I know in I think it's the second week vlog when I read The Infernal Devices, I mentioned that in the second book, they sort of just threw in the fact that Will can see ghosts, and nothing really came from that. I never remembered anything coming from that. There was a little bit of something near the end of, I think, Clockwork Princess, but like that was it, and it just felt a little bit weird that we never really got much more. I know somebody on my comments did mention that Chain of Gold has more ghosts, which I'm looking forward to. However, we also did have a little bit in here, and I really like that aspect as well. Like, I think it's a cool thing to have in here, but one thing that they did talk about is how, like, Herondales can see ghosts. Like, it's stated as a fact, but we have a Herondale in the Mortal Instruments that never sees a ghost. So is that a fluke? Is that something we're not supposed to think about? Is it something that is going to show up later and I just don't know about it? I don't know. But so like, the fact that it's a fact is interesting, but we have a whole Herondale that I've never seen talk to a ghost or see a ghost or anything like that. So it's just one of those things where, like, I like the idea, I like the concept, I want to know more, but we already have a contradiction, and I'm just curious as to why. I'm not complaining, I'm just why I want to know why. But okay, so this book, I have less than half to go now. I am 55% of the way in according to Goodreads. I'm going to be getting some breakfast and trying to read. My goal for today is to finish the book. My goal for the weekend, because tomorrow is Sunday, is I want to at least get started into Queen of Air and Darkness. If I would have been doing the 430 pages, I would have already started Queen of Air and Darkness last night. Just like 50 pages, but like I would have started it already. So the fact that I'm not finished with Lord of Shadows is not looking good for my page count. We're gonna try our best. If I can at least say that I'm in the middle of Chain of Gold by the end of this month, that'll be great, but we shall see. Okay, so it is 3:20 and I have finished Lord of Shadows, which means I've already read 309 pages today. So we're doing good. My husband and I had an agreement today. Today I am reading as much as possible, and oh my gosh, my heart is still beating so fast. Those last like 20 pages in here was giving me so much anxiety, and it ended on such a like action and devastation, and like this is the whole reason I did not pick up this book right away in the first place. I think I mentioned it before, but I had heard it was devastating, and like I can completely see that now. I had been spoiled for some of the who's and what's its. Not everything though, and I'm just like seriously, so much anxiety over this last bit of this book. But I also really, really loved it. 5 out of 5 stars for this book. I know I said in some of my other vlogs that like the second half of the Mortal Instruments series had a lot of characters branching out to other paths and other plot points, and even though it had stuff to do with the overarching plot, it wasn't enough of like the togetherness of what I liked to, you know, really like it and give it like 5 stars. Except for book 6. I really liked book 6. But this series, especially like this book here, has so many characters that, I don't know, it feels like it even just started off with separate tiny groups. Like we have Emma and Julian like together the most, and then we have like Mark and Kieran and Christina, and then we also have Ty and Livia and Kit, and it just feels like they're sort of in the groups they're meant to be in. And so even though again we have sort of them going off and doing their own thing, it is all related to one plot point, but it felt like it worked so much better in this one. Everybody gets, I feel like, equal amount of time. It's not like Emma and Julian are the most time in the book, because I know I think it was like book 5 of the Mortal Instruments, Jace and Clary were always our main characters, and even though we had other characters that, you know, became main characters as well as the series went on, that book still was like 2/3 Jace and Clary and like 1/3 everybody else. This, they were divided so equally, and oh my gosh, yeah, there was so much stuff going on in here. I can't I can't even wrap my brain around it. But like, yeah, the ending, oh my gosh, the ending. Okay, so that means this thick old chunker is the next book we're reading. This is the longest book. It is over 900 pages. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but I do feel like I need something after Lord of Shadows, so that's fine. I don't know if we can see here. Let me see if it'll focus on there. There are lines in between this book, and I believe that they are like character portraits in the book, and from what I had been told when this came out, do not look at those beforehand. Apparently they have spoilers, because I know one of my friends was spoiled for something, I don't know what, but she, we both worked at Barnes & Noble, and she was sort of like, you know, petting the books. You know how people do, you sort of like pet them, flip through the pages. I know I do that, so we can't be the only ones, but she somehow flipped to some character portrait, and apparently it had spoiler stuff on there, so don't do that if you're gonna read this book. I don't know much else. Ooh, we got character art on the back, and then this one for me, sorry, I'm gonna do this really quick, is also signed. I had actually gone to a book signing and met Cassandra Clare and everything, so that's always exciting. But let's look at our art on here. We're gonna start from here and go over. So it looks like we have Diana, Kit, Ty, Church, Mark, Julian, Emma, Christina, Kieran, Diego, Drusilla, and Jamie. Pretty sure that's what we're looking at. It is gorgeous. I love the fact that Church is in here too. Church is in all of the books basically. He is an immortal cat because like witches had him in the Infernal Devices, and he just like goes along with it for all the books. Also though, there are tons of cats mentioned in here. Like Magnus has a cat, Church is a cat, Simon has a cat. I think there was somebody else that had a cat. Cats obviously are Cassandra Clare's choice for pet, and I don't blame her. I have 5 of them. So, and the inside jacket art is by Alice Duke. I'm very excited to jump into this. 900 and something pages of probably more devastation, let's face it. But I'm very excited. I should not be flipping through pages because I don't want to be spoiled. Okay, I've just gotten to page 42 in Queen of Air and Darkness, and this is hard to read too. It basically starts exactly after Lord of Shadows, and yeah, okay, I'm not gonna get into it. However, I did also just want to show that there are pictures in here. I think I said that they were portraits. I think I assumed they were portraits. I don't fully know, but there are illustrations in here. I just got to one, and it's not really anything spoilery. We basically just have Julian and Magnus. So I figured I could at least show you the picture, because again, it doesn't do anything different for this one. I'm sure there's other pictures in here that will be spoilers, but this one, not really anything. And I just thought it was interesting. Counting the amount of black lines in the book, it looks like there's probably about 10 illustrations. There might be more, but those are the black lines I can see. And I don't know, that's just making me more interested to read it. I'm gonna keep reading. It's only like 4:30, so I'm trying to get as much done today as possible. We'll see what happens. So I know I've been checking in a lot today, and I just sort of checked in with you guys earlier when I was on page 40 something. Well, I'm on page 78 now, and I don't know how much more we have of this. We're going to a different perspective in a different place now, but I basically just wanted to say that everything within that last like 75, 76 pages was related to the end of the last book. And I know I talked about it earlier that there was a death. Well, there was a couple deaths, but it's all about the grief that people are feeling and the funeral and everything like that. And we never really got into it in that much detail in any of the other books. The other books did have deaths and consequences and all this stuff, and I don't know if it was because it was more related to wars and that kind of stuff when things like that were happening, that there was just too much high stakes of like, you have to keep going to, you know, defeat the bad guy, or what it was. But we never really got the chance to have this sort of aspect in the other books. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, especially when you have all this other stuff going on. They did talk about like grief and like, oh yeah, they're still grieving for stuff, but like we never really got to see the direct aftermath of it. And in this one, we did for quite a bit, which I'm not complaining about, but it's very hard to read, very emotional, very like my chest just like feels it, like constricts a little bit. But yeah, so it looks like we might be going to another part now. We're joining another person's point of view in a different place. So maybe it'll be a little bit easier to read. I'm not saying it's like hard to read text-wise, just hard to read emotionally. Good morning and happy Sunday. I'm actually on page 237 of Queen of Air and Darkness, which I'm very happy about. I'm not quite caught up to where I should be. According to my breakdown of numbers and stuff, if I was going to be making sure I read everything by the end of this month, I should have been on like page 483 of Queen of Air and Darkness yesterday. So I'm actually not too far away, just like 240-ish pages or so. I'm getting there. Today I need to film, edit, and CC a video for tomorrow. I didn't like how my hair was yesterday, and so I didn't actually film, but also I wasn't trying to like read as much as possible. So I'm gonna try and do that today. Film, edit, and CC. It's an easy video. It shouldn't be too long. However, you never know. But otherwise, I'm also going to be trying to read as much of Queen of Air and Darkness today as well. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I think my favorite book that I've read so far is probably The Mortal Instruments, City of Heavenly Fire. Like, that one is a great finale, came together so well. But this series, I do feel like is a little bit more complex and everything like that, and I do really enjoy it. Not all the characters are my favorite. Like, Emma is pretty okay, but like Julian is actually one of those characters where I don't fully know how I feel about him, even though he is technically like one of the main characters. And it's just mostly because like I don't relate to him. I don't see the main point, I guess, on a lot of things that he does. I mean, I see the point, but it's not the way that I probably would have done it. And I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but I just don't relate to him as well. But there are other characters in the other small groups that I do really, really enjoy. And because this is more of like an ensemble cast and not just like Emma and Julian are the main characters and everybody else is secondary, we do get pretty even time with everybody. Like, these chapters are like a couple pages per point of view almost. Like, the chapters are still like 20-30 pages long, but you get a little bit of everybody and then it sort of cycles through a little bit sometimes, and I'm just really enjoying it. So I guess that's my update for now. I don't think I told you, read 546 pages yesterday, so I'm definitely trying to get back on track. We will see if I can pull that out again today once I'm done filming and everything. I'm gonna try and read in between stuff. Like, I'm not gonna film till my hair is dry, so I'm gonna try and read, and then I'll have to edit, and then while it's uploading I'll read. We'll you know, try lots of things like that. Okay, it is 7:40. We're going to be putting Presley to bed soon, and I am a little bit more than halfway through Queen of Air and Darkness now. I did almost talk to you guys earlier where I wasn't liking a character too much because it was feeling very, very similar to City of Lost Souls, where we had a character acting out of character even though there was an excuse for it. However, thankfully it didn't last super long, so I'm very grateful for that because it is feeling much better now. I am currently in part 2, which feels like it should have been a whole nother book. And what I mean by that is part 2 didn't really start until like 397 or 398. It was almost 400 pages into this book, and it felt sort of like part 1 should have been one book, and then this part 2 should have been a sequel or a continuation. I am loving part 2 right now. It is actually one of my favorite parts, but it just, I don't know, because it's such a difference between what part 1 was and what part 2 is, and we're mostly just following Julian and Emma now, it just feels like it should have been a different book. I'm very excited to see where it's going because I'm, like I said, I'm loving this part. If this was like more of the book, I would not be complaining. I'm loving it. And then I'm very curious to see what I guess we're gonna get in part 3, because I feel like part 2 can't last for a super long time. But no wonder this book is like 900 and something pages, because it feels like it's probably gonna feel like a whole trilogy in one. But I'm loving it. Like I said, we're gonna be putting Presley to bed soon, so I will not be talking to you guys again tonight. However, I'm gonna be reading as much as possible because I am enthralled. Hello and happy Monday. As you guys can tell from watching this vlog, I am still going. We only have 3 more days in the month, and October starts on Thursday. So I'm just adding these last 3 days onto this vlog. I did get up to page 613 in Queen of Air and Darkness last night. Really enjoying it. Can't really get into plot-wise and that kind of stuff, but I did start reading again this morning. I'm on page 668, and we have not a ton left to go. We are, I think, less than 300 pages left, closing in on 200 pages left, and I'm definitely going to finish this today and then hopefully start Ghost of the Shadow Market, which is the last short story collection I have and the last book I have before Chain of Gold. But again, we only have like 3 days left, so I need to get a move on reading as much as possible. I read like 300 and something pages yesterday, which is not as good as it could be, but it wasn't bad. I'm just trying to get into it. I also started my period today, so I feel like crap, but we're gonna read. Okay, it is almost 5 o'clock and I have finished Queen of Air and Darkness. I turned off his TV. You're okay. What if I come sit right next to you? Is this better? So I finished this book. It was really good, 5 out of 5 stars. It is huge. And I know I said yesterday, I believe it was, that I do feel like it could have been split into like 2 books. Who knows? I do still almost feel like that just because it is so thick, but it still went together really, really well. I really, really enjoyed this one. I loved the characters. I do feel like I liked other characters more than Emma and Julian. I feel like that a lot though with certain books. Like I like the, I guess what you would consider secondary characters more, but it was so well done. I love the fact that we do get other characters from other series in this one, and it's not like just Emma and Julian. Also though, it felt like we got, you know, an ending, a resolution, an epilogue sort of thing before we actually got to the epilogue, and I really, really enjoyed that part. However, the actual epilogue of this finale is leaving it open-ended for more things. And I know there is going to be another series after this one. So the Last Hours, which starts with Chain of Gold, is technically like after the Infernal Devices. So not that one, but the Wicked Powers. Eventually we will get that one, which does take place after this. But I want to say this is one of the only ones, at least that I'm currently remembering, where the actual like epilogue of a series finale leaves it open-ended for more books. Like it wrapped up really nicely, and then we had an epilogue which opened it up to more things. And so I'm not complaining really, because again, I love the book. I cried during this book, like full-on tears. I teared up at some of the other series stuff, but like I full-on cried at this one. It was really, really good. But it left it open-ended. So yeah. Now also, I have my book all the way over there because that's where I was earlier before he started getting cranky. I'm going to be starting Ghost of the Shadow Market, which is the last short story collection that I need to read right now. I don't know how many pages is in it. I have technically tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and that is all I have for that book and Chain of Gold. I'm really hoping to get more pages read tonight, but we will be having dinner eventually, so I don't know how much I'll read tonight. I'll probably talk to you guys tomorrow, but I'm very, very excited for it. This is all about Shadow Market stuff, I think, and I know, like, Jem is in it, Brother Zachariah is in it, and that kind of stuff. I do know that the different stories do take place across the different series, so we won't be having everything, you know, at one time period, sort of like Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy was mostly right after City of Heavenly Fire. This one is going to be jumping around, but I'm very excited because I'm hoping it gives us more about characters that I love, or gives us more about the characters that we're going to see in Chain of Gold, because I'm very, very curious and excited about that, and I want to get that done. So that's my update for now. Good morning and happy Tuesday. So I am in the middle of Ghost of the Shadow Market. I've actually read 6 stories so far, 5 stories last night, so I just read an extra one right now. Presley was like halfway sleeping through the story, just a little bit, woke up from his morning nap. I finished it, but I read 580 pages yesterday. So I'm super happy about that, because obviously I finished Queen of Air and Darkness, and one thing that I forgot to mention, but I feel like I should mention because it's something that I like. So there is a like love triangle in that series, and Cassandra Clare is one of the only people that, instead of making them choose through the love triangle, made it a poly relationship, and I loved it. So that was just something that I needed to like add in there. But like I said, I'm in the middle of this. I read the first 5 stories yesterday. It took me up to page like 279, 280. And then I read one more story today. I'm liking this short story collection well enough. However, it does seem to be in chronological order so far, and the first few stories aren't my favorite. We did get a story with Matthew and a story with Anna from like Chain of Gold, so I am excited that I got a little bit more of their characters. I'm slowly figuring out whose kids are whose from that series, because I know Cassandra Clare always does huge casts, it feels like, in these books. However, we had a big cast already in the Infernal Devices, and now with the Last Hours, we have their kids, and some of these families have multiple kids, and they're all like different cousins to different families, because like we have like Gabriel and Gideon's kids are cousins, but then we also have like Cecily and Will's kids are cousins, and it's so it's hard to keep track. Even though I'm only doing the short stories so far, I'm getting there. But the stories weren't amazing. However, the one that I just read, which is Son of the Dawn, which takes place around the time when Jace comes from Idris and moves in with the Lightwoods, that one I really enjoyed. We got more of Raphael, we got more of Lily, who is like hilarious. I just really enjoyed that one. And then the next one looks like it's going to take place in 2012. I feel like that probably happens during Lady Midnight, because they do mention Alec going on like a mission, and it looks like that's part of that. So I'm very excited to continue with this, because it does seem like it's going in that chronological order, and I'm very excited. I do also believe that the text in this book is so much bigger, and that's why I was able to knock out like 280 pages last night once Presley went to bed, because I took a break yesterday after finishing Queen of Air and Darkness before I started reading this one, and I just didn't even start until after we put Presley to bed at like 8 something, and I was able to read almost 300 pages super quickly, it felt like. So the text sizes from these books differ a little bit. Not a ton, but I do know that the text on this one feels very similar to like the Infernal Devices and the Mortal Instruments. I do believe the Dark Artifices ones had a smaller text size. However, the smallest one that I have seen has been from the Eldest Curses, so like Red Scrolls of Magic and The Lost Book of the White. That text size is so small compared to everything else. So even though those books are only like 300, 400 pages, it's not. They are much longer when you try to read them. So this is a breath of fresh air having the text size be so big. So it is almost 10 o'clock. I'm going to be filming a video soon, but what that basically means is I need to finish this book and read Chain of Gold today and tomorrow. I'm really hoping that this is going to be something that I can do, because this one feels like it's going by pretty quickly. Since I've read another story, I'm currently on page 331, and I'm more than halfway through this one. It's not going to take me too long to read this. Chain of Gold is not the longest book, so it shouldn't take me too long to read that, but I don't remember how long it is, so I'll have to talk to you guys about that as we get closer. One other thing about this book, I am missing the like comic style that they used to have in the other short story collections, where you got to see like a snippet of the story as a comic. Instead, we have like a black and white artist version of what I'm pretty sure the like title page, cover page of the ebook looked like, because I know that they had artsy stuff like this for the ebooks. So I mean, I still like the art, I'm just missing the comics. Okay, and so we have finished Ghosts of the Shadow Market. I think I'm gonna give this a 4, basically like I've given every other short story collection we've read this month. It's just, I don't know. The first 5 stories that I read last night were okay. They were fine. They were good. They were, you know, stories. And then the last 5 that I read today were really good. I don't know if it's because they were closer in time period to the stuff that I know, like the Mortal Instruments, the Dark Artifices. A couple of these stories even take place after the Dark Artifices, so it was giving me characters that I knew and loved and then more. But 4 stars. I feel like if it would have been just those last 5 stories, it probably would have been closer to a 5, and if it was just the first 5 stories, probably closer to a 3. But I really enjoyed this as well as I could for a short story collection because I don't like them as much as like novels. But yes, good stuff. Now, it is 4:15. I am doing much better than I thought I was, but again, the text size on this is just so much bigger. Like, I don't even know, can I show you guys, maybe? So here you have the text size of the Ghost of the Shadow Market. Moving into Lady Midnight, there is a slight difference in size, but I really don't think it's huge. And then, this is the Lost Book of the White. Again, it doesn't seem like a huge difference, but this feels like a huge difference. I don't even know if you can see it on camera as well as in person, but these books feel like they take longer to read versus page count, whereas like this one felt like it took a quicker time to read versus page count. But now, today is the 29th. We have 1 day left in September after today, and I have 1 book left. This book is also over 600 pages. The one I just read was like 612, and I don't know exactly how many pages this one has. I don't have my phone on me right now, but it is also like just over 600 pages. So we have a day and a half, a day and a few hours to read this, because I am probably going to take at least a couple hour break, sort of like I did yesterday after finishing a book before I start this one. So I will definitely be starting this tonight at least, probably after Presley goes to bed, but we shall see. And then I'll have all the rest of today to read this. I'm very excited for it because there were, like I mentioned before, short stories that led into characters from here, and I need to know what's going on with it. The text size on this one looks closer to Lady Midnight size than Ghost of the Shadow Market size. So, not horrible, but not the best. We shall see, and I will let you guys know when I start reading this or tomorrow. Good morning and happy Wednesday. It is the last day of September, which means I need to finish this. I am almost 200 pages in as of last night. I have not started reading yet today. It's just past 8. We are gonna get breakfast first, but I'm really liking this so far. I don't fully know what the concept of this is because after like the Mortal Instruments series, I've just not ever looked up the summaries on these books. I've just decided I'm gonna read them and that's all I care about. I do believe it has something to do with the fact that in this London time period, so this is like the children of the people from the Infernal Devices, they haven't had like basically any demon sightings in London for years, and now they're having weird demon sightings. So it's not the typical stuff, like one of the things happened during the day, which demons aren't supposed to come out during the day. So I feel like that's part of what's going on. It is very intriguing. Like I've loved these. Hi. He climbed up here just to see the camera. But I've loved these books since the Mortal Instruments. But I do feel like the writing style and the world building and everything like that has been getting better with each subsequent book. So like the newer stuff is really, really good. But like I said, we're gonna have breakfast. So that's what he wants. And I will talk to you guys later. Okay, it is just after 4 p.m. I have been reading this on and off all day. I had to take a break a little bit when Presley was waking up from his nap because he didn't quite wake up. He decided that he wanted to sleep on me and sleep a little bit longer. But I'm currently on page 460, so I have just over 150 pages left, so like probably like 170-ish. I'm gonna finish it. I'm hoping to do it before dinner because we usually don't eat until like 6:30. I have a couple hours. But we also have this kid trying to climb up here already. Yeah, the camera. Yeah. It's really good so far. I'm really enjoying it. I can't actually really get into it besides what I told you guys. It is them sort of dealing with demons that they've never really had to deal with before. And there's other stuff going on, but I don't know how to describe it without giving spoilers away. But yeah, so we're gonna get back into this. Okay, 5:35 and I have finished the last book. I have hit my goal. I am never doing this again. This was too much, so crazy. I mean, I enjoyed everything that I read. I love this series and this world, and I really, really enjoy the books. But I read 10,186 pages this month, when the next highest was like just under 6,500. I read so much. But yes, I finished Chain of Gold. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this one. I was a little bit worried about the characters, only because we did get introduced to some of the characters in this series in the short story collections, and I was a little bit confused as to like whose kids were whose, but I do think it was much better reading this one. I really did like all the different aspects we had in here, especially with like James and Lucy. We also seem to have multiple love triangle things going on, so I feel like this series has a lot more, I guess, potential romance things that are going to be happening later on than some of the other ones. A lot of the other series didn't seem to have as much triangle, will they, won't they sort of stuff. And this one definitely does. One thing that I did not mention yesterday, I think it was yesterday, when I finished Ghost of the Shadow Market, because I completely forgot about it, but it does have trigger warnings for miscarriage, and they mention it a little bit in here, but the main part that I feel like would probably be upsetting is going to be in the short story collection. Not necessarily this one as much, but they did mention it once. But otherwise, really, really enjoyed this one. I don't think I could necessarily pick a favorite book out of everything that I read, but this one would be really high. I really love City of Heavenly Fire. I really, really enjoyed the Dark Artifices series. I feel like Cassandra Clare has been getting better with each series and each book that she does, because she's including so much more into the world. So I still really love like the beginning of the Mortal Instruments, but the way of writing, the plot, the content of everything does seem to be more simplistic. But yes, I finally finished all of my stuff. I was worried a little bit last week. I did not think this was necessarily going to happen, but for the last like 6 days, I've been reading over 350 pages a day, with the last few days like 500-ish, 400-ish pages. So we got there. We got there. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays. So I will see you then. Bye.